Hey, what's happening, guys? What's going on YouTube? Today we're going to be talking about Shopify, and I think I'm going to title today's video, Will Shopify Shut Down My Store If They Don't Like What I'm Selling? And I'd gotten a question via email. Somebody was looking at opening up a supplement, nootropic, and glass pipe store, and they were kind of wondering like what risks come with selling those items. Will Shopify allow them to run a store? Will Shopify turn the store down? And it seemed like they were kind of trying to understand. I think they realize that there's some extra challenges that come with selling in those industries, and I think they were kind of wanting some light to be shed on, what is it going to be like running a store in those niches. Well, they didn't explicitly ask this. I think, a lot of people know that things like advertising via things like Facebook ads, AdWords, Google Shopping, certain niches aren't allowed. I think people realize like supplements and weed stuff is kind of a gray area. It's going to be tough to advertise. Probably less people know this, but I think a lot of people kind of understand that payment processing is going to be a challenge in certain industries as well. So I just kind of wanted to answer this question. I thought it might kind of shed some light and give people a little bit more of an in-depth look at these specific industries, but also really anything that's kind of like a gray market industry. Legal to be sold, but that comes with certain challenge with whether it be advertising, payment processing, etc. I'm not really sure how I'm going to edit this video, so I'm going to be talking about some things on my screen. And depending on how I decide to edit this video, I found there's this new, I don't even know if it's new, but I was kind of playing around with some different like video editing apps, websites, etc. Buffer had a good article recently about like 10 simple to use, cheap, free video editing apps, and there was like one cool one that kind of turns your audio into like a podcast with like volume bars and just kind of makes things a little bit more visually exciting. So I may mess around with that. If so, you guys may not see what's on the screen. But right now we're at shopify.com /start. And I was just it's been a while since I've been on. Normally I just go straight to my domains to log in. It's been a while since I've been to the Shopify homepage. And just before we get into this, like one interesting thing that I'm starting to see is kind of how Shopify is marketing and advertising themselves. And it's almost as if there's two Shopifys. And what I mean by that, I was at IRCE, the Internet Retailer Conference and Exhibition, about 2-3 weeks back. And, that's kind of for more serious businesses. And that's kind of one of the things I think a lot of people these days are starting to think that Shopify is a tool for drop shipping. Shopify is a tool for print on demand. And really, like, Shopify started out as a website builder that was easy for established businesses to bring their brick and mortar business online. And it was kind of, I want to say it was kind of geared towards more like real businesses. And I think Shopify has realized, and kind of what the trend has become, is there's a lot more, and I don't say this to insult anybody, but there's a lot more like amateurish shops. There's a lot more drop shipping stores. There's a lot more people trying to do retail arbitrage. There's a lot more people doing print on demand. There's a lot more of those people than there are large businesses. And I think Shopify is I was going to say starting to, but I think Shopify is really catering their message and catering their marketing and catering their platform to a lot of these, we'll say entrepreneurs. But, don't forget Shopify is used for big businesses. Right here, we're looking at Peet's Coffee. Peet's Coffee is a Shopify store. It's, it has some kind of telltale signs of a Shopify store. If we looked at the code, we could tell it's Shopify. But we got the notification banner along the top. Kind of the nature of the menu is a Shopify store, clearly. I believe they're using an out of the sandbox theme. Pretty much everybody, all big shops, all big businesses right now, everybody tends to be using the Portland theme. And the company who makes this is a company called Out of the Sandbox. And I have a bunch of clients using this. A lot of the bigger companies are using this theme. I'm pretty sure that this is Portland theme. If it's not Portland, it's another version from Out the Sandbox. You can kind of see how everything's like created in this kind of block editor format. This is like telltale Shopify. You got like your featured collection here. Pretty much everybody using the Brooklyn theme and a lot of other themes. Like you got an image here with a little bit of text to the left. We got another kind of featured collection. Newsletter sign up at the bottom, footer. I think they probably removed the powered by Shopify, but clearly a Shopify theme. So a big company like Pete's Coffee using Shopify. Here's another one, Kylie Cosmetics. You guys know Kylie Jenner. Ooh, hubba hubba. Nobody's probably said that in 20 years. But again, pretty much a telltale Shopify theme. There's actually kind of a cool app on Pete's Coffee here if you go into subscriptions. This isn't cheap, but there's, I forget the name of the company who does this, but there's a company who does these, product selection tools. And, let's see, small batch, find your match. So kind of a new trend that we're seeing in e-commerce is, these product finder things. So, I come to Pete's Coffee website and I don't really know what I want. So they have, an app that's going to help me find what I want. So, I'm more of a coffee drinker. I don't really like K-Cups, or I don't have a Keurig. We'll click next. I realize I'm kind of rambling here before we get into the topic at hand, but this is running slow because I have the screen recorder going. But essentially, it'll take me and ask me, do you like a dark roast, a light roast, or a medium roast? And I click that, and they're going to ask me maybe 3 to 6 questions, and they're going to select a coffee for me. So I just wanted to kind of make the point that there are a lot of bigger businesses using Shopify. But getting back to this guy's question, he seems to realize that there's going to be some challenges with operating in the supplement / glass pipe / nootropic niche. And just when I read this email, it was kind of threw me off. I'm like, at first I was like, dude, pick a niche. You got supplements, and you got nootropics, and you got weed pipes. You're kind of commingling a lot of things. That's actually not a bad strategy sometimes. Kind of combining 2 niches is kind of a way of almost niching down even further. And I can kind of see the cross between I'm kind of a stoner, and I also kind of like supplements and body hacking or mind hacking, whatever. When I think of supplements, I tend to kind of think of Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss is very into body hacking, so figuring out how to get the most out of your body, trying smart drugs, trying supplements to kind of improve your athletic performance, trying to find the best routine for yourself, basically trying to make yourself more efficient, more powerful, more stronger, more smarter. So that's kind of the audience that I'm kind of thinking of, and I think there are probably a lot of potheads who are also interested in nootropics, whether it be modafinil or phenibut or whatever else. So I can kind of see how those niches come together. The one thing that kind of jumped out at me is you're kind of picking 2 of the most challenging niches to operate in and combining them. And here's kind of the challenge that comes along with that. And we'll talk in a minute about is Shopify actually going to stop you from operating your store, or stop you from selling these things? But, I come from the world of high-risk e-commerce, high-risk merchant processing. And what that means, there are plenty of industries, plenty of products, plenty of things out there that are 100% legal, but that Google, AdSense, Facebook, different social media sites, they're going to have additional rules. Sometimes they'll entirely block out people from advertising in these categories. And it's kind of because when you get involved in health, money, things that people ingest, things that could cause people to lose money, investments, when you get into any of those types of areas, companies like Google and Facebook, they don't want to be responsible for helping promote a scam or helping to advertise a scam. So if you remember back to, what was that, 2017, when Facebook banned cryptocurrency advertising, there were a lot of scam ICOs. There were a lot of people kind of selling scam, learn how to do crypto things. There were a lot of people advertising BitConnect, and Facebook didn't want headlines Facebook helps promote BitConnect Ponzi scheme, so they banned that type of advertising. Facebook, Google, whoever else, they don't want to advertise your crazy research drug that you imported from North Korea and capsuled up and started selling on Shopify. They don't want headlines about how Google was promoting this, research drug that's making people eat people's faces off or something like that. So these companies are going to be kind of hesitant when it comes to advertising. Some of these categories will be completely prohibited from advertising. In other categories, there'll be certain rules. So if you're selling supplements, for example, they may say, okay, well, you can run Google Shopping for vitamin B6 and vitamin B12 pills, and you can run, zinc, magnesium, all that type of stuff. Even like protein and pre-workouts is probably not a huge issue. Once you start getting into anything that's like a fat burner or an energy pill, and then especially I would say nootropics as well. It starts to get merchant processors and advertisers start to have issues with that. And I'm pretty sure Facebook won't allow any advertising in the diet niche, period. But you have these two, and I guess that kind of brings us to merchant processing, which that's where I have a lot of experience is high risk merchant processing. I've talked to hundreds of merchant processors. For one of my businesses, I used PayPal for like 3 years. We had months when we did over $250,000 in sales. PayPal. I think 1 year PayPal made like $80,000 in PayPal fees off of us. I mean, PayPal was making good money off us. We didn't have chargebacks. We didn't have returns. We were, a great client. And then just eventually one day out of the blue, kind of due to volume as well as kind of the sensitive nature of some of the products we sold, they, called us up and you got 30 days to find a new processor. And we wound up going 3 months without processing. I called over 300 processors before I found another one. Some processors were wanting to charge me as much as like 14% to give me kind of a shady merchant account where they were kind of hiding me and my business amongst other merchant accounts. I eventually did find a legitimate high-risk merchant account, but I was still paying like 6-7% to process. And when you get into high-risk credit card processing, a lot of companies tend to specialize in certain things. So there's going to be some companies that kind of advertise themselves as like, we specialize in supplements. We allow the advertising of supplements. And then you're going to have other processors who are like, we're a CBD processor. And then you're going to have other processors who are like, we allow you to process for vape stuff and marijuana paraphernalia. So there's going to be certain processors that are going to specialize in certain niches. And one of the challenges you face when you start to combine, I would consider nootropics to be supplements, but it is kind of a different version of supplements, especially if you're getting into like the research chemical type stuff, which technically people aren't supposed to ingest. You're selling it for research purposes. When you start getting into that area, it's almost a different set of processors. So you're going to need like one high-risk process. One high-risk processor may be okay with the supplements, but they're not going to be okay with the weed pipes. Maybe you got another processor you find, and they're cool with the weed pipes or the CBD, but they're not going to be cool with the supplements. So, you would almost need 3 different processors, and this can be done, but it starts getting tricky where you can actually set up your Shopify so that certain products, certain collections go through different processors. So, if you buy a supplement, it's going to go through Durango Merchant Services. It's going to go through a different checkout. If you buy a weed pipe, it's going to go through California Merchant Bank. If you're selling, research chemical supplements, it's going to go through this other bank. So there is a way to kind of steer people to a certain checkout that's going to go through a certain processor. But that starts getting pretty complicated as far as the Shopify stuff goes. Now, as far as like what Shopify will allow you and not allow you to open up stores for, this is where things get a little bit misunderstood by a lot of people. So there are very few rules about what you can actually sell on Shopify. I mean, short of selling illegal drugs, illegal weapons, and trademark infringing goods, like outside of that, Shopify is pretty much fair game for anything. The couple areas when Shopify itself will actually shut down your store would be like literally if you were trying to sell like marijuana online, like they would shut that down. And even that, they would probably take them a while to catch on and actually do it. If you were selling, I'm trying to think, if you're selling knockoff things, if you're selling fake Nike shoes, fake Reebok shoes, fake Under Armour, that's going to get you shut down right away. If you're selling like t-shirts with rap artists and things like that on them, that's something you'll probably get away with for a while. Eventually it will get shut down, and it kind of does depend on like how active is that rap artist, is that television show, is that movie, is Marvel, whatever. How active is the company or the person whose likeness you're using? How active are they in like monitoring the internet and getting things shut down? So like MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL, these guys are super active online. They hire giant law firms whose job is to do nothing else but peruse the internet looking for people infringing on their copyrights and their trademarks. And that'll get you taken down really quick. Now, if you're selling like Lil Wayne t-shirts, It kind of depends if Lil Wayne has a team kind of perusing the internet, getting stuff taken down. Some artists kind of don't really mind fan art and don't really mind, people kind of profiting off them because it kind of grows their name and grows their brand. But other ones kind of strictly enforce that. So that's kind of a whole different area there. But kind of my point here is that there's very few areas where Shopify will actually shut you down for. I had an incident when one of my wholesalers couldn't supply me with a certain product anymore. They just ran out. And so I was looking for other suppliers, and I found a Shopify store, which was actually like a B2C Shopify store. It wasn't business to business, it was business to consumer. But they had really good prices, and where I was priced at, I could actually almost kind of do the retail arbitrage thing and buy it from them and resell it and still make money. So I placed an order. It was like $5,400 for the Shopify store. I was a little bit hesitant because I hadn't heard of them, and I knew most people in my industry. But I wound up reaching out to the guy, talked to him. I'm like, can you ship quick? Oh, yeah, I'll ship right away, blah, blah, blah. So anyhow, I wind up getting the items from him. It's counterfeit, it's fake, it's knockoff. I reach out to the guy, and he's kind of giving me a song and dance about like, oh, well, first he's kind of not responding. Then I start kind of getting threatening, and then he kind of starts responding, but it's kind of like, well, just do a credit card chargeback. And with the credit card chargeback, I'm going to get my money anyways. Plus, you're going to get it with the chargeback fee. Plus, it might cause problems with your Shopify payments. Why this guy didn't just refund me, I don't know. But eventually, I wound up tracking down like a bunch of info about him. Kind of let him know that this wasn't going to end. This wasn't going to get dropped. And eventually, he did give me a refund. But I actually called Shopify just because of all the bullshit. And I was like, look, I'm like, this guy's running a fake store. I'd actually found 3 to 4 YouTube videos of people saying either this guy took my money and never shipped anything, or he took my money and shipped me fake stuff. Found several YouTube videos, found some blog posts, some stuff on BBB. And I actually called Shopify up, and I had already gotten my money back, but I wanted to get this guy shut down. I'm like, this guy's running a scam, and Shopify's allowing to go on. So I called Shopify customer support, and I was like, look, here's what this guy's doing. And, they could have cared less. They were like, okay, well, thanks for letting us know. Just do a chargeback. And I was like, well, I did that already. What I'm trying to say is, like, I don't want other people to have to go through the headache that I went through. If this guy is clearly a scam, like, shouldn't you shut his store down or look into this? And they were like, yeah, just do a chargeback. If enough of those happen, we'll look into it. And to this day, the guy's store is still operating. But Shopify really gives zero fucks about what people are selling. Like I said, the only time they care is if a company reaches out to them with a, DCMA, takedown request, in which they're required to kind of take action, and or if you're doing something that's kind of putting their business in jeopardy, which would be like selling drugs or selling weapons. But outside of that, keep in mind, Shopify is nothing more than a website builder. Some people build their websites with WordPress. Some people build their websites with Shopify. One thing I will say about Shopify, it's more centralized. So if Shopify wanted to, Shopify does have more control. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're doing anything like sensitive, and here's just some good advice for bloggers, affiliate marketers, if you want to put up some website. If you're using WordPress is open source. WordPress, the entity, can't shut your store down as long as you're using WordPress.org and not WordPress.com. It's a software, so there's not a company behind it that can shut you down. Like, if you're doing something controversial, maybe you're blogging about a controversial topic and you don't want a bunch of, social justice warriors to, hit up Shopify or Squarespace or whatever and try to get your website taken down. Maybe if people don't agree with your views, things like that. If you have a WordPress site, the only entity that can actually do anything to your website would be whoever is hosting your domain. So if you buy your domain from something like Namecheap, Namecheap can theoretically take your website down, but like WordPress can't do anything about your site. One of the kind of unique things about Shopify is Shopify controls the hosting. You have your hosting through Shopify. Shopify is also the website builder. So Shopify isn't likely to take anything down, again, as long as you're not like breaking laws. Theoretically, they could. Whereas if you're doing something on WordPress and you buy hosting from a company in Panama as opposed to like a GoDaddy or a Namecheap, like pretty much there's nothing that can take your website down short of like the U.S. government, Department of Justice, something like that. So that's just kind of like if you're wanting complete freedom and complete lack of control over you, using something less centralized than a Shopify might not be a bad idea. But where a lot of this confusion comes in regards to Shopify shutting people's websites down. So there's kind of a division of Shopify called Shopify Payments. Shopify Payments is technically Stripe kind of rebranded under Shopify. And Stripe, Stripe is it's a good merchant processor if you sell normal stuff, if you're selling t-shirts, if you're selling socks, if you're selling backpacks. If you're selling nootropics, if you're selling supplements, if you're selling weed stuff, Shopify or Stripe, just go read their terms of service. They don't allow that. Stripe technically doesn't allow drop shipping. And I've talked about this before, but there's kind of one kind of like weird little caveat between signing up for a straight Stripe account and signing up for a Shopify Payments account. If you go on Stripe and look under their prohibited businesses, prohibited items, prohibited sales tactics, it actually says drop shipping is banned, and they consider drop shipping high risk. And that's because a lot of these, AliExpress drop shippers have long shipping times. They're selling poor quality products. A lot of people are selling knockoff stuff. And drop shipping just doesn't necessarily, drop shipping tends to have more chargebacks. It's not as good of a customer experience unless people are really on top of their drop shipping. And so that's why Stripe doesn't allow it. Now, Shopify Payments doesn't say anything in the terms of service about drop shipping. And I think that's because Shopify is kind of catering their business to drop shipping. If I'm not mistaken, I think Shopify actually bought Oberlo a while back. And, Shopify puts out all these guides about drop shipping, obviously because it's very easy to get into drop shipping. So, every young person who sees a YouTube video about, make millions drop shipping, they go open up a Shopify store, and that's more $29 a month fees for Shopify. That's more payment processing fees for Shopify. That's more people buying apps. That's more people hiring Shopify partners as developers. So Shopify wants the drop shippers coming. And what I have a feeling it is like if you start getting chargebacks or excessive returns, Shopify Payments is going to shut you down. And so I think the way that Shopify is set up like that is because, look, if you're drop shipping the proper way, nobody should even know you're drop shipping in the first place, right? You should have good customer service. You should have a relationship with your supplier. Your item should be delivered within a reasonable amount of time. Ideally, your drop shipper is blind shipping or doing white label shipping, meaning they're putting your name on the product packages on the invoice, what actually looks like coming from you. So, if you're doing drop shipping that way, Shopify and Stripe don't really give a shit that you're drop shipping because nobody knows and you're providing a good shopping experience. If you start getting a bunch of chargebacks and things like that, well, yeah, Shopify Payments is going to knock you off. But Shopify Payments is what shuts people down. When I was selling hoverboards back in 2015, initially they shut down hoverboards, but then I set up a shop selling hoverboard parts, so like gyroscopes, replacement batteries, motherboards, replacement wheels, the shells, stickers, things like that. Eventually Shopify Payments, I should say, deemed anything hoverboard related, anything with the word hoverboard, high risk. Then eventually, I think there was a big trademark fight between Mark Cuban and some Chinese guy, and then the word hoverboard was something that would get you kicked off Shopify Payments. So you had to call it like a self-balancing two-wheel scooter. I've had other Shopify Payments accounts shut down for selling collectibles. Collectibles, oddly enough, anything from baseball coins to baseball cards to coins to currency, that's all considered high risk as well. But yeah, really Shopify doesn't shut stores down. Shopify Payments cuts off people from processing, and once people get cut off from processing, most people don't look deeper to try to find another processor. Most people think that actually getting a real merchant account is too big of a step for their business because you can set up a Stripe account, you can set up a PayPal account for free. It doesn't cost you anything to set those up. Whereas if you get a real merchant account, there's a little bit more of an in-depth application process. Normally they'll charge anywhere from $19 to $30 a month for the ability to process credit cards. And you can't process credit cards with just a merchant account. You're going to also need to get a gateway. So you're going to need to get something like Authorize.net is the most popular, but there's another one like NMI, North American Merchant something. That tends to be a lot of the high-risk merchant accounts use NMI instead of Authorize. But now you're having to pay another fee. I think the official fee for Authorize.net is $8, but most of your merchant accounts and most people who are setting you up are resellers. So, they're going to get it for $8, but they're going to mark it up to 19 or 25 or 30 to make a little bit of extra money off you. So, on the low end, you probably got $20 for the merchant account, $20 for the gateway. So you're looking at $40 a month just for the ability to process credit cards. Plus, on top of that, you're going to have to pay Shopify the $29 a month fee. And here's something not a lot of people know about, and this is really kind of shitty at Shopify, in my opinion. It's one of the biggest downsides of Shopify. If you don't use Shopify payments or PayPal, PayPal is kind of a little loophole that a lot of people don't know about. But if you're not using Shopify payments, Shopify charges you a transaction fee, the same way eBay or Amazon charge you a transaction fee. Now, what's kind of shitty about this is, at least with eBay and Amazon, like, they're providing a lot of extra stuff for you, right? Like, they have, eBay's got buyer and seller protection. They're going to help you print your shipping labels. They're bringing you traffic because eBay and Amazon have an audience of people who are searching for certain items. Shopify isn't a platform in the sense that they have their own pool of buyers. So when you set up a Shopify store, you're going to get zero traffic unless you actually drive your own traffic to Shopify. And so what am I paying Shopify? I'm already paying you $29 a month. Like, why are you charging me 2%? It's basically, well, we can't make extra money off your merchant processing, so we're going to hit you with 2%. 2% is pretty high. Figure you're already going to be paying your merchant processor probably 2.9%, so we'll call it 3%. Now they tack on another 2%. You're at 5%, which, cuts into your business. You can get that lower when you start going up to higher tiered Shopify plans. So I think Shopify has plans at it's like 29, was it like 69 or 79? There's another one at like 179 or 300 or something like that. When you go up to the basic Shopify plan, not using Shopify payments, is going to cost you 2%. The next tier up to $79 or whatever it is, that's going to be 1.5. And if you go up to the top Shopify plan, they're going to charge you 0.5% or 0.5%. So I actually, in my former business, bought my way up to the top Shopify plan, which cost me a couple $100 a month. However, it wound up being worth it. I didn't really use any of the additional services or reports that got me, but it did get my processing fee lower, and 1.5% of, say, $150,000, which is what we did a month in sales, winds up being a lot more than the $350 or whatever it was for the top Shopify plan. So it made sense to do that to lower the transaction fee for us. But yeah, Shopify payments is what you're going to have issues with, not actually Shopify itself. And then just kind of getting back to like challenges of operating in these industries, advertising is going to be a challenge. Weed stuff, you're probably not going to be able to advertise on Facebook. Most social media platforms, I think Reddit might allow you to, and probably not Google AdSense or Google Shopping. Supplements, probably not Facebook, maybe not some social media platforms. AdSense, AdWords, depending on what you sell, you can advertise some supplements, and Google Shopping tends to be a little bit more open. So there's a lot of things that you can't advertise on AdSense search, but you can advertise on Google Shopping. So that's a challenge, and then we had kind of talked about the challenge from the payment processing end of things. Here's another thing, with weed pipes and stuff, I'm a little bit, I think it's not as risky as things that people are going to put on their skin or even worse, ingest. So, if you're selling weed pipes, it might not be a bad idea to get an age gate on your website. There are some Shopify apps that create an age gate, which is either like putting your birthday or are you 21 years old. That's not necessarily a huge challenge, pretty easy to do. I think you can pay about $9.99 a month for some age gate Shopify apps. The bigger challenge is what you really should have, especially if you're selling research drugs, if you're selling supplements, if you're selling things that people are using either topically or even ingesting. You're definitely going to want to have some type of liability insurance, product liability insurance. The first year, I know a lot of people are kind of bootstrapping their businesses and don't have a ton of money, so this may be kind of like out of the realm for a lot of people as is. But the first year, it's normally going to be pretty cheap. They have nothing to base it off of, so it is going to be somewhat based off of what you sell in the industry you're in and like how much risk that presents. But it's kind of based off your sales volume. So initially, you have a sales volume of essentially zero. They're going to ask you to estimate your sales volume, and that's what you're going to be charged your insurance off of. I think when I was doing hoverboards, I looked into product liability insurance, and I want to say, at least starting out, it was going to be maybe, I would say, under $1,500 for the first year, which may seem like a huge amount to you, may not seem that bad. I think it could potentially even just a couple $100. But, once you start doing business and the volume increases and there's actually a record of the numbers you're doing, they're going to want to see your merchant processing statements and stuff to see how much you're doing. And, if you're selling a lot, they're going to charge you more because you're getting products into that many more people's hands. If you're not selling a ton, the insurance would be cheaper. And theoretically, if you're selling a lot of stuff, you're making money, and you can probably foot the bill for that insurance. But yeah, I mean, supplements, nootropics, you're definitely going to want to probably have an attorney write up some disclaimers and things like that. You know, if you're selling nootropic research drugs that people aren't supposed to ingest, and you're selling it kind of knowing that people are going to eat it or ingest it, probably want to have a lawyer write up your terms and conditions, terms of service, all that type of stuff. And probably not a bad idea to have a product liability insurance too, just in case people take too much of something, have allergic reaction, whatever else. So we're coming up on 30 minutes here. I know we kind of covered a lot of stuff. Hopefully you guys found this interesting. You know, I think a lot of people are curious about starting Shopify stores and either have no idea about kind of like challenges that come with operating in certain industries, or maybe they kind of have an inkling, but you know, kind of don't really know what they're kind of getting themselves into. So anyhow, you know, if you guys have questions, want to delve into this deeper, if any of you guys have experience operating in any of these industries and can shed some kind of firsthand experiences, that would probably be helpful. I'll link down below to where you guys can get a free Shopify trial for 14 days if you want to play around with Shopify. If you're looking for a high-risk merchant processor, if you're looking to sell something that can't be sold via Shopify payments, I'll link to a high-risk processor I use. They typically don't do rolling reserves. They're not offshore, so they are here in the U.S. I've personally used them myself for a couple of years. Good guys over there. You can talk to the CEO. The rates that you pay aren't crazy. And then if for some reason you're like super high risk and can't even get merchant processing, they do have some like e-check and ACH options as well. So I'll link to them down below as well. They're called charge.com. But that's the video for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. You know, if you guys want to keep the discussion going, I'd be happy to chat further or answer any questions. Otherwise, if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button down below. And we'll catch you guys in the next video. Later.